Hello, and welcome back. That's right, baby, the Framework Simp is back at it again. And this time I wanted to go ahead and talk about Gardiner Bryant. Now, if you're watching this video, you definitely know who Gardner is, but for those who don't, Gardner used to go by the Linux Gamer here on YouTube. He was somebody about 5 or 6 years ago that I would subscribe to and watch, and he was a pretty influential figure in my Linux journey early on. However, it seems that as time has passed, he has decided to let his politics outweigh rational thinking in regards to right to repair and open source communities. So just off the bat, we're not going to become a political channel. However, the topic of politics is pretty hard to avoid with this video, so bear with me on this. If you disagree with my politics, that doesn't invalidate your political opinions. We're all just here to enjoy technology on the Ubiquitous channel, so disclaimer out of the way.
To articulate the real problem here, maybe Nirav, maybe your insistence on promoting Omarchy is because you actually agree with DHH's views. And despite your lip service to the contrary, Nirav, many people interpret Framework's continued association and promotion of Omarchy as a direct endorsement of DHH's politics. This is the danger of associating with projects regardless of the weird and not to mention bigoted shit that their leaders say. This big tent excuse, or if you'd prefer deflection, is not passing muster. Not for me, not for many folks. Framework, and Nirav in particular, you guys need to grow up and realize the real harm that you're doing to your own brand and your reputation as an organization. You need to be more selective about the kinds of projects that you throw your very real weight behind, and you need to be concerned about the future of your organization. I will not be supporting, I will not be recommending, nor will I be promoting your products unless and until you stop aligning yourself with Omarchy.
So it's pretty bold of Gardner to want to just accuse Nirav and Framework to be supportive of what he claims to be racist and bigoted shit. And if you aren't aware, DHH has created this operating system, this distro of Linux called Omarchy, and it's basically just Arch Linux with Hyperland on it. Everybody at this point should know what Omarchy is. It's gone fairly viral and has been pretty successful of a project. You're the only one in this situation who really needs to grow up, because you're having a little baby temper tantrum and pointing the finger at a CEO and a whole entire team of people for supporting, again, an open source distro of Linux. They aren't DHH. Omarchy isn't DHH. It's just his creation. And you can change his creation to be whatever you want it to be. And guess what? His creation isn't a racist creation. I honestly don't have an issue with him having a problem with DHH. He has a blog, which Gardner in this video likes to reference some blog posts from 2021, and apparently he has had some controversial opinions to some on this blog, and it's been enough to rile up Gardner into disavowing for Framework. And it's the sentence he says near the end of his video that kind of annoyed me and made me want to make this video. And his big problem is that Framework is promoting Omarchy, and therefore it is enough of an offense to him that they're promoting an open source project that he's not going to support them, and he's going to accuse them of being racist, and then wants to turn around and say,
and before anyone claims that this is me engaging in cancel culture or wokeness, you can call it whatever you want. Frankly, I don't care. But what I call it is having principles, and it's time more folks do the same.
It just reeks of immaturity, and it's pretty ironic because he likes to point the finger right back at Framework and Nirav particularly and say that they're being immature in this whole situation. And I get it, it's probably even more immature of me to come in here as a third party uninvolved and talk about it and complain and, you know, point the finger at Gardner and say, no, you're immature. But the only reason I care about this is because Framework is the only company right now doing what they're doing as far as creating modular laptops that are for the users to have the right to repair them. So many manufacturers are soldering parts into their computers, and it's created such a headache. It's just a huge headache when it comes to trying to repair and get more life out of these machines. I'm usually the guy in my family who people throw their computers to if there's something wrong with them, whether it's a desktop or it's a laptop. And it's been more laptops, honestly, because I mean, nobody really has a tower desktop anymore, at least in my circle. And when I'm looking at these devices, I actually have, let me grab it real quick. Somebody here has given me this Lenovo Yoga 710. Now this is a 2-in-1 laptop from about 10 years ago. I think it came out in 2016. And their issue with it wasn't really, you know, anything hardware wise per se. They just had a slow experience. So my thought is, okay, let's just, you know, throw in a little bit of RAM. This was before the RAM shortage happened. But it's irrelevant because when I went to go and dig into this device, I found out that the memory is soldered in. You can't upgrade it. There's no slots there, and I haven't found a slot. I'm gonna feel really stupid if somebody leaves me a comment saying there's a slot. But that's it. Windows, essentially, especially with Windows 11 and the end of life of Windows 10, you gotta have Linux on this, which would be a benefit, but 8 gigabytes, I feel like even with Linux, you're cutting it close. They used to say that like Linux Mint is great because you only need 4 gigabytes of RAM to run Linux Mint. I tend to double the system minimum requirements, and even then my rule of thumb is 8 should be the minimum. Like I feel like this device might have only 3 or 4 years left with 8 gigabytes of RAM. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I'm going to throw on just standard Ubuntu or maybe CachyOS with GNOME on it and try to optimize the user interface for a touchscreen and see how that person in my family likes it. But to get back to my main point, nobody else is really doing what Framework is doing right now in the modern age. And it's very concerning when you see relatively big and popular figures in the tech space, especially on YouTube, a tech influencer, talk down on it and completely miss the point of Framework in the case of the video I did about Austin Evans and Matt Ancini. But in the regards to Gardiner Bryant, he's a huge open source advocate and he's really big in that tech space. So he thinks that because DHH had a blog and 4 years ago said something that he deemed to be racist, that means today Narav is a racist because he's including him in this giant tent of open source projects.
Context, I'm not trying to take him out of context. What he says is pretty bad. Suffice it to say, his takes smack to me of paranoia, bigotry, manosphere nootropic lectualism, and grifterism. And because of all of that, it's important to mention that DHH is the founder of Ruby on Rails. DHH has been a divisive leader of this project, and with the introduction of his blog a little while ago, he has totally bifurcated the Rails community. He should not be allowed to fail upwards with his next endeavor, Omarchy. Getting promotion by an organization like Framework that has real important shit to do, that is being seen by many as an endorsement of DHH's views. And frankly, I would expect the leadership at Framework to be mature enough and responsible enough to recognize that simple fact.
You know, you're really not as big as you think you are, dude. I mean, Narav and Framework ultimately just want to increase the quality of open source projects and get more eyes on it and get people out of the idea that you can only have software that's provided to you from Microsoft, because Mac's a closed ecosystem. So I mean, those guys are over there, and hopefully he can even pull them over here by showing that the aesthetics they have and the quality of software they have is just as good over here where the grass is greener. But yeah, for some reason he thinks that DHH's blog from 4 years ago is a reflection of who Narav is today. I can't label that as anything other than immaturity.
Well, I get regular compliments about how nice and welcoming my comment section is. And believe it or not, there's a reason for that. While YouTube's algorithm prioritizes views and watch time above all else, for my own sanity, I value the quality of the viewers that I attract over the quantity. I do this by choosing the topics I cover with introspection and deliberation, and also having certain expectations from my comment section.
However, he likes to sit here and say that people come to him and compliment him about how great his community is, and how that's because he only allows quality people and he prioritizes quality people to come to his content, and anybody else not allowed. His commenters, bots, if they don't agree with him.
Now, I suspect my wading into this controversy is going to see the comments section under this video littered with bots and disingenuous trolls, as if it's possible to tell the difference anymore. So if you're a regular viewer of mine, I would advise you to steer clear of the comment section on this video.
Well, don't you worry, baby, because I'm definitely not a bot, and I'm in that comment section telling you what's good. If you see this comment right here, I left a little reply myself. I said, I don't think Framework is immature for promoting Omachi. Rather, it's immature of you to treat the situation like Framework or Narav fully encompass the things that you don't like about DHH. They have only helped strengthen the open source community by bringing more to it while you're trying to limit and fragment the community. And that's just ridiculous. That just oozes immaturity. If somebody disagrees with your opinion, it's not because you're wrong, and it's not because they're a bot. It's just because they have a different opinion. Doesn't make them wrong. But you, on the other hand, would like to say that they're low quality trolls and bots, and it's just so... It's so disappointing to see in a YouTuber that I used to watch, but it's even more disappointing to see somebody try to look at Narav, who's trying to open up open source development to literally everybody and not fragment the user base. Open source literally is all about inclusion, and just because DHH has a problem with what's happening in a country that you don't live in, by the way, that doesn't make Narav and Framework a bunch of racists, and that's really disgusting to see you put that label on them. That's not really high quality of you, that's pretty scummy. Again, if you don't like DHH as a person, that's fine. If you don't like Narav as a person, that's fine. At the end of the day, Framework is the only company that is heavily supporting right to repair and giving you so many upgrade paths to not only save costs, but to reduce e-waste in the environment. They're giving power to the user, and there is literally no other company that is doing that in the computing space. I mean, we have Crucial leaving the consumer market just so that they can provide more for the AI data centers. I mean, like, find anybody else like Framework and leave a comment down below. Speaking of the comments down below, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has discovered the channel and has left a like, a comment, or subscribed. I welcome everybody. This is a big tent that anybody is allowed to come and comment and subscribe to. I welcome all of you, because at the end of the day, I'm here giving you my opinions and my thoughts, maybe sharing some knowledge with you if you didn't know about it. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.